Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview. I'm Andrew Musgrove. I'm joined by Matt Davies, and if you're watching on the Nottingham Forest Rich PLC page, you will recognise Matt. He's the host of your Nottingham Forest podcast. He's going to give my listeners the insight into Newcastle United, and I'm hopefully going to give you guys a bit of insight into Newcastle United. Sorry, Matt's going to give the insight into Nottingham Forest. I'm getting my words mixed up, and we're only 30 seconds in. A brilliant start. Matt, thank you for popping on. I mean, first off, a big day for Forest on Saturday. First time back in the top flight in 23 years. The excitement must be, just something really special to get the campaign underway.
Yeah, I mean, Wembley feels like a million years ago, really, but it was only a couple of months ago. It's been a real whirlwind since then with so many signings, which we'll probably mention. And that wait's been so long. I mean, I don't think there'd be a Forest fan who ever thought in 1999 you'd have to wait till 2022 for another ball to be kicked in the Premier League by a Forest player. So, yeah, there's so much anticipation. I think it's a good first game as well, a big club, and it's going to be an amazing atmosphere. So if it wasn't going to be a home game, then a trip to a club like Newcastle's a really good start for Forest, I think.
For those Forest fans coming up, you'll enjoy climbing all those steps up to level 7. It's quite the trek up. You talked about Forest and the signings they've made this summer. They've been very, very busy. They've signed some notable players as well as some players that you may not have heard of. I suppose the one we have to start with is Jesse Lingard. Newcastle very close to signing Jesse Lingard in January before Manchester United heaped on a massive loan fee and a survival fee as well. Obviously out of contract this summer. Again, was reportedly offered to Newcastle United. They stepped away from that. He's ended up at Forest. Bit of a surprise, Matt, to see him end up at Forest when he had the likes of West Ham as well on the table.
Yeah, I think so. That's fair to say. I mean, when the news first broke that Forest were in for him, I think a lot of fans dismissed it as, we've been linked with so many players. This is just another one. But I suppose there's a few factors to it. I mean, money is obviously one, but I don't think Forest are paying him anywhere near as much as been reported. It's certainly not 200 grand a week. It's on a par with what West Ham offered. I think there's family connections. I don't think he wanted to move to London. He's got a daughter in Manchester, so that's a factor. And I think Steve Cooper, Newcastle fans are going to laugh at this. Steve Cooper sold him some kind of vision that there's something good happening. And then, of course, the other factor is it's a one-year deal in a World Cup year, and he is going to play a lot of football, and it's a chance to put himself in a shop window in the Gareth Southgate sense, and also perhaps for the next season as well. I mean, he has a great season at Forest. He either goes to a bigger club. Forest fans will accept there are bigger clubs, I think, even though Forest are a massive club, or he signs a longer-term contract at Forest if they've had a successful season. So, yeah, a surprise, but I think there's a lot of rationale behind it when you dig a little deeper and don't listen to TalkSport pundits slagging him off all the time.
Like you say, a big few months for Jesse Lingard ahead of the World Cup. You've also signed Dean Henderson, another player that was linked to Newcastle United. They've obviously gone out and signed Nick Pope. His words about his time, how it ended at Manchester United, an interview earlier this week has caused a bit of a stir. Is he likely to be your number one goalkeeper, you think, this season?
Oh, yeah, massively. He's a quality keeper. I mean, that's another one that a statement that's, they're here to stay. I mean, Brice Samba was magnificent for Forest and kind of engineered his own move, I think, or through his people by coming public with money wrangles, and that opened the door to say we're going to sign someone else. There was talk of Nick Pope, and I'll ask you about Pope in a minute, but I think Henderson's a great signing. We've got Wayne Hennessy as the number 2, who's a good Premier League number 2, but Henderson's key. They've got a good sturdy defence in front of him, and they've made a lot of signings. Not so much Premier League experience, a lot of Bundesliga signings, and a few players from the French league. But I think they're well set. I think they'll have a good go. Well, one thing interesting about Newcastle, if you don't mind bouncing it back and forth, how can they replace Dubravka? Because I always thought he was good. Has he got a mistake in him or something?
I don't think he was kind of the same player after the last injury, and there was a few mistakes in him since then, but he's still a very good goalkeeper. I thought he performed well in the final pre-season game against Bilbao. I think more than anything, it's about having 2 quality players in the same position. For a long time, Dubravka, even if he'd had a bad game, he'd likely be in the starting lineup the game after, because no disrespect to Carl Darlow, Mark Gillespie, Freddie Woodman, they weren't the level of Dubravka on a bad day.
Is your mic gone off or mine gone off?
Sorry.
There you go. No, you're not back.
Joys of live. Is it back now?
Yeah, you're back now.
Sorry, I was just saying that it's that the new a really good goalkeeper, but the opportunity to get another one, and that was not how it ever was under Mike Ashley. But these new owners, sure that Eddie Howe's got the best squad possible, on Dubravka up another. And there's no guarantee Nick Pope's going to start on Saturday. I think he will, but he's come out again this week and said there's instances that he's number one. And what it means is that Nick Pope, as good as a goalkeeper he is, he knows that he's got someone as good as Martin Dubravka fighting for this number one position. A battle to, and it all how they've performed during pre-season, how they've performed this week on the training pitch, and I don't decision for number one for Saturday.
Your mic's a little crackly. I don't know. It's in and out. I had this one of mine at work, and I just gave up on it and just pulled everything out and just used the boring standard mic. You might have a loose connection. No, I can't hear you now. I'll talk a bit about Forest while Andrew looks at his mic. So for Newcastle fans, I think Forest, I'll give them the lineup of how Forest line up and talk through it. Obviously, Henderson in goal. Then the back four is Joe Worrell, the captain, back three, I should say. Steve Cook, and then Scott McKenna, the Scotland international. And I would expect Forest to line up with four across the middle in Nico Williams, who plays a wing back because Jed Spence went to Tottenham, and then probably Jack Colback, who's a player we can talk about, who I think is gonna start with Ryan Yates, the vice captain, injured, and Orel Mangala, one of the new signings, probably not up to speed. Lewis O'Brien in midfield with him, and then Harry Toffolo, a signing from Huddersfield, left wing back. Then Lingard in behind, Brennan Johnson, who might be another player we talk about, a class player, and probably Taiwo Awoniyi as the new club record signing, although Sam Sturridge played in the last friendly, which kind of indicates he might start. That's always a good indicator, I think. So the interesting decisions for Cooper to make. Are you back? No, you're not back. I'll keep talking. Take everything out and start again. So, for Forest, I guess Brennan Johnson's the player to watch. There was a bit of talk about even just going with Brennan as a kind of a false nine, playing through the middle, and then playing Lingard off him. It's something we discussed on our podcast, and trying to suck up all the pressure and hit Newcastle on the break. And Newcastle fans in the comments might have something to say about this, but I think it's quite a good time to play Newcastle because there's this weight of expectation. Because probably most Newcastle fans are going to rock up on Saturday expecting a win. I don't know if it's going to be a comfortable win or what the expectation is, but I think they'll expect them to win. So Forest might go there and think, actually, this is a good time to play Newcastle. If we keep it's a bit boring, keep it quiet for 20 minutes and then try and hit them. I think you're back now.
I hope so.
You're back.
I do apologise to our listeners. We're having a bit of trouble with these mics, so hopefully I'm back. It's interesting. I was going to ask you about the striker that you've signed there, Awoniyi. Now, he had a good season last season, but it's the first time he's hit over double figures. Liverpool fans will know of him. You know, he signed there quite a few years ago. Is it a gamble? Do you think that Forest have gone out and splashed quite a bit of money on a chap who has, only had really one prolific season?
Yeah, I suppose it is kind of. I think the thing is, there's a Premier League premium, isn't there? I mean, who are you going to go out and get that could score that many goals? I think one of the big things behind the signings of the Bundesliga players are Forest's head of recruitment came from Stuttgart and knows the Bundesliga inside out and has seen opportunity there of kind of an untapped market, or an undertapped market, I should say, that they think Awoniyi and Mangala, who they've got from Stuttgart, and Moussa Niakate, who they got from Mainz, are players who can make the step up. A player of Awoniyi's build and goal record just from last season in the Premier League, I mean, what are you going to have to spend there? 40 million? I'm not sure. So as a promoted club, yeah, I think there is an element of a gamble there, and maybe it does take him time to settle. I'm not expecting massive amounts of goals from him straight away, which is why they've got Sturridge, and I think they'll bring one other player in. But I think there's an element of risk there. But then Newcastle, I thought your boys would go out and sign someone massive some crazy big hitter. And I don't think they have they? Where are your goals coming from?
Well, it'll come from Callum Wilson if he stays fit, but that's the big question. But if Wilson is fit, there are a few better Premier League strikers. Obviously Haaland is up there, Salah, Harry Kane. But outside it, maybe the top 4 or 5 that people will instantly name, a fit Callum Wilson is pretty much unstoppable on his day. And we've just got to hope from Newcastle point of view that he is fit for most of the season. He's got this really unlucky injury record, but he's looked sharp in pre-season. He scored against Bilbao in the last game. And I've got him in my fantasy team as captain because I'm quietly confident as captain for this weekend because I'm quietly confident he's going to get 1 or 2 against Forest. I'm
boring. I've just gone for Salah. I thought, I hadn't even got a Newcastle player in. You got tough fixtures. This is something I can ask you. You got a tough fixture to start with, haven't you? I mean, us are they the easiest fixture on paper for us? It's quite a tricky start for Newcastle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite a tricky start. You've got Man City at home after this one, but you know what? You've got to play everybody. I'm not a fan of saying, it's a tricky start and whatever. You've got to play everyone at some time. And a lot of people are saying this is the perfect start for Newcastle. The stadium's going to be bouncing, big flag display. The atmosphere is going to be brilliant. It's a new dawn. But Forest are on a high. This isn't like Norwich coming up every other season, is it? They've been here before. This is the first time in 23 years. So this is a big, big deal for Nottingham Forest. And maybe it's the Newcastle United fan within me do fear a bit of a banana peel that Newcastle may have to step over on Saturday.
Yeah, I think people are misreading Forest a lot. I think outside of Nottingham, they're seeing the spending. They see it as either you're Fulham of 2018 and you're wasting the money, and I don't think they are. I think there's a plan behind it, so I don't see it that way. I don't think we're a Norwich or a Watford of last season, and I think there's other Premier League clubs this weekend in a lot worse shape than Nottingham Forest. I mean, look at Bournemouth, barely signed anyone. Fulham have just don't seem to have any defence particularly. Everton are a total mess as far as I can tell. I think Dele Alli might play as their central striker at the weekend. So if you're a Newcastle fan who thinks you're going to win the game comfortably, I mean, they might do, but I don't think they will. I think it's a trickier test than people think. I did press with Steve Cooper yesterday, and he wasn't talking like a manager who thinks they're going to be in a relegation battle. He was talking about a big test and a big step up, but a challenge they're relishing and one they have belief in within the group. It's still a core of the players from last season who took them up, and I think that can carry them quite a long way.
You mentioned earlier there in the show about Brennan Johnson, a young man. He's another one who's been linked to Newcastle United. Had a great kind of breakthrough season last campaign. Just how special of a player is he?
He could be. I think he's on the way to being a special player. He's special at championship level, certainly, and he did well for Wales at the end of last season. I've said this before on our podcast and other ones. I'll say it again. I think in 2 or 3 years, he's Jack Grealish and he's playing for Liverpool or Man City. I think he's got that level. I don't think, much as I love him to stay at Forest for the rest of his career, I don't think that happens. He's good enough to play at the very, very top because he's intelligent and he's not and doesn't care about the limelight or anything. He's just the ice in his veins is something I've said a lot before. You watch his goals; he's a brilliant finisher. He's not a penalty box striker. He's someone who makes intelligent runs and puts them away, and he's got a great end product in terms of crossing. He'll drift out to the right, and if I was Matt Targett, assuming he's left back, he's going to have a tough afternoon really if Forest do come out and attack. So yeah, he's got all the potential in the world.
In terms of Forest's defence, who are we looking at starting at centre-back? Who are the men tasked with stopping the likes of Callum Wilson?
Yeah, that's one of the dilemmas. It's definitely going to be a back three. Worrell's the captain. He's going to play on the right. And then the question is, do you play Steve Cook, who was crucial to getting promotion, but lacks a bit of pace, and Scott McKenna, who also lacks a bit of pace, but he was player of the season. So Worrell and McKenna, I say, are nailed on. The question is, do you play Moussa Niakhaté, the new signing, who's very quick, very good on the ball, but like you were saying before about a lot of players, hasn't played in the Premier League, he's coming from the Bundesliga. I've said in my predicted team, I think it'll be Cook for continuity and experience, but Niakhaté, it wouldn't surprise me if he plays on the left of the three because he's quick. Harry Toffolo isn't. So like Callum Wilson's he's quick, isn't he? He's quite nippy. You're going to have to watch out for him. You're going to have to watch out from runners from deep if it's Guimaraes and people like that. I mean, is Guimaraes? I thought he did really well last season. Is he going to be box to box, or is he going to really have to sit a bit more because you haven't really signed anyone of that ilk yet?
It's going to be an interesting one. I mean, if everyone was fit and Newcastle are lacking John Joe Shelvey, it would have been Shelvey dropping deep and Guimaraes, continuing as he did last season, getting box to box. Tomorrow with Shelvey out, it's going to be a really interesting one to see how Eddie Howe picks his side. Will he pick Sean Longstaff and potentially drop Sean Longstaff into that deep role and allow Guimaraes to do what he has been doing? Or will he drop Guimaraes into that deeper role and potentially bring in someone like Elliott Anderson, who he said today isn't going to be loaned out. He's going to be an integral part of his squad. This is, for Forest fans, is Elliott Anderson, a young Geordie lad who impressed on loan last season. Bristol Rovers essentially was the reason they got promoted. And lots of talk that he'd get loaned out to a championship team, but he's impressed so much in pre-season that Eddie Howe has now decided, it seems, to keep him on. And lots of people would like to see him start tomorrow. I mean, that's partly, that dream, isn't it, of seeing a Geordie in the side, and especially this new era that Newcastle are on. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he picks that midfield. Guimaraes was brought in, and it was said he didn't know how to score goals, but he ended the season with 5 or 6, and he surprised a lot of people. But he's just a very classy player, and he's set the bar for the kind of players Newcastle need to be signing, because he's just been something really special, and he's looking like he's worth every bit of the money they've spent on him. So Forest are going to.
Your mic's gone again.
Has it? Let me just pull.
Oh, no, you're back. It's all right. No, it's gone again. I think you've moved it. I'll ask a question quickly and see if it comes back in the meantime. One of the things I wonder about Newcastle, are they a bit lacking pace at the back? I mean, Matt Targett never struck me as quick. Dan Burn never struck me as quick. I've never seen Sven Botman play, and I assume he's probably going to play. But Forest have got a lot of pace up front. Awani is someone who's going to run. He's going to run that kind of right back channel between the right back and the centre back. Johnson's going to do it on the left, and I think Lingard's going to take up space in the middle. So that might be a weakness of Newcastle. I don't know if the fans want to comment on that. Are you back?
Am I back?
No, you're half back and half not. I'll answer some Forest transfer questions quickly because I can see them coming in. So bear with me, Newcastle fans, just for 1 second. Keenan Davis. Any news on Keenan Davis? That's Stuart McRae. He's a player Forest like. I think his hamstring injury has come at a really bad time, but he's a fan. Or should I say, Steve Cooper's a big fan of his. And we were talking about Awani. I think he needs a little bit of time to bed in. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went for him. Someone's mentioned Shea Adams as well, or Chad Adams, Alice has put in the comment. I think he sounds like an American football college player. But Shea Adams, yeah, I can see that. A busy player who runs around with a lot of energy and quality, fits the Forest mould as well. So, yeah, that's certainly possible. And the other players, obviously Morgan Gibbs-White. There was so much talk of Gibbs-White last night. I think in the end it happens. Forest have had another bid rejected reportedly, and they're kind of grinding Wolves down, one step at a time. So, yes, I think that does happen. Andrew, you're back. Wilson is saying about, Wilson, the fancy team. Andrew, come on, lad. That is a big call.
I'm just confident that he's going to score a few goals, not just against Forest, but this season in general. When he was fit, he was unbelievable. It's just you've got to hope that he keeps fit, and that's going to be the big issue. But you mentioned there about the lack of pace potentially in that Newcastle side. I mean, Botman, from what we've seen, looks like he has got quite a bit of pace. He again looks like a very classy player. Yes, we've only seen him in pre-season, but the touches on the ball, reading the game, he looks like he's definitely got something about him. It's going to be interesting to see who starts with him. If it's Dan Burn, he does like a little bit of pace. He performed really well since his move from Brighton in January. If it's Fabian Schär, there's a bit more pace there, but he's got a bit of a mistake. And Jamal Lascelles is an interesting one. Obviously, club captain. He was linked to a move back to Forest at the start of the summer, but looks like he's going to stick around. I've got a sneaky suspicion, he might actually line up with Botman and Lascelles in the middle of the park. I don't know what Newcastle United fans think, but I do have a little bit of a feeling he might do that just to try and get the balance at the back, because otherwise it's two left-footed players in that centre-back role, which people don't tend to like. People are a bit worried how that's going to work. But on the other side, you've got Kieran Trippier, Matt, who, I mean, what can you say about Kieran Trippier that hasn't already been said? Absolutely superb signing for Newcastle United. And he's just a leader. He's got quality on the ball. He's an organiser, top player, and a real unbelievable signing for Newcastle United. And he started the ball rolling on what's followed and what's to come as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player I must put my fantasy league team because of his free kicks. He's definite quality. And what is to come? For Forest fans, I think they'd be interested to know. I thought Newcastle might go, not mad, but I thought they might go bigger. Are you expecting a lot more business between now and the end of the window?
They want a striker and they want a winger. And I think they will do their utmost to get that. But I think it's unfair. It's an unfair expectation on Newcastle that they would have just opened the checkbook and thrown everything they've got at the transfer window, because Amanda Staveley, one of the corners, has always said it's going to be a slow and steady process. And that's what it has been. It's not going to be like when Man City got taken over and they threw everything at it, because the football landscape's changed. You've got financial fair play, and it's not as easy as that. And what they've done is they've stuck to their guns. Sven Botman was wanted in January. They didn't get him. They went back this summer. They got him. They wanted Hugo Ekitike in January. Didn't get him. Went back this summer. He's gone to PSG. But they've not got this scattergun approach. And I think that's really refreshing. Even now, first game on the horizon, they haven't got the striker they wanted in. They haven't got the winger they wanted in. But there's no sense of panic. There's still, just under a month to go. And I think we will see Newcastle get the players they want. It might have to be second or third choice. But, every player that comes in will have been scouted. They would have, looked at not just what they can do on the ball, but their attitude and how they'll bed into this squad. And that's the refreshing thing, I think, about Newcastle, is that they have a plan and they're sticking to it. And it's an exciting time to be a Newcastle United fan. The hope has to be, though, that all the optimism, all the positivity off the pitch can be transferred onto the pitch. And from a Newcastle point of view, they start with a win on Saturday.
There's quite a few parallels there from what you say, like me misreading the Newcastle transfer plan, and obviously people have done that with Forest, and there is a plan for Newcastle, so that's good to hear. I was going to ask you about Joe Linton. I love Joe Linton. I mean, is he going to be a big player this season? As a midfielder, I thought he was brilliant those last few games of the season.
Well, I think everybody is hoping he's going to be the player that he was in the second half of last season. A total surprise. Fair play to him. Fair play to Eddie Howe and the coaching staff for bringing this out of him. He is not the first. He's the second or third name on that team sheet for me, because he just offers something that not really anyone else on that Newcastle United squad can, and that's the strength in the midfield. Now, Guimaraes is strong, but Joe Linton's a bit of a warrior. He looks like he can run through a brick wall and carry on down the street. He's finally found how to use everything he had in that time he found it tough, if that makes sense. He's always had the strength. He's always had the eye to pass. It just didn't come off. Whatever Eddie Howe and his staff have done have unearthed a player that no one, not even Joe Linton, probably thought was there. And it's been so brilliant to see. The fans have absolutely loved it. And he's going to be a big part. For him, the pressure, I think, is a little bit on, because that's not his natural position. So he has to continue to impress in that position. Otherwise, there are plenty of options in that midfield. But for now, he'll start. And I think I'm backing him to continue in the manner that he finished last season, which was, for many people, a kind of Patrick Vieira-esque performances.
What reception will Colback get, do you think, if any? Will Newcastle fans be bothered?
I don't know. I think there's too much positivity and too much change at Newcastle for them to really care. Obviously crossing the divide, joining from Sunderland was a big move, and I think he did a decent enough job. He was a good servant for Newcastle. He had some good games. He hardly let them down at all from memory. And will he? I mean, I don't even think he'll get booed. Will he get a round of applause? Potentially, but I don't really think it matters. He said, didn't he, yesterday in the press conference, it's just another game for him. So I don't think he's really too fussed about it either. Of course, what you see on camera might be something totally different to what you see privately. But I think he'll just get on with the job. I think Newcastle fans, like I said, they might give him a brief round of applause, but I don't think it's like, it's not a big name coming back. It's not like when Tim Krul comes back or anything like that. He always gets a really nice reception. I think it's just one of those. He'll turn up, do a job, and it'll not really matter unless he scores a goal, of course. I don't think it'll really matter.
No.
I just want to ask you, Matt, about how you think Nottingham Forest as a team, as players individually, will handle Saturday. Like we say, first time in 23 years have been in the top flight, so there's that, but also it's going to be a really, really big atmosphere at St James's Park on Saturday. How do you think the players are going to handle what's to come?
I don't think atmosphere is a factor for the players who were there last season, because they played obviously at Wembley, and if you can play in a playoff final and not bottle it, then you've got some steel, because the pressure was awful. And they had big games against Arsenal, Liverpool, Leicester in the FA Cup, and they've played big crowds before, so I think they'll be all right. They were at the City Ground. I think Forest away fans can be a big influence normally, but I don't think they will be so much here, because the Newcastle fans are just so loud and so numerous. So that's a bit of a factor. I don't know if worry is the right word, but the new players are a bit of an unknown quantity about how they're going to front up. So I think Nico Williams will be fine. He just played in a World Cup playoff, but Harry Toffolo's not played at this level. Lewis O'Brien's not played at this level. Again, they played at Wembley for Huddersfield, so you'd hope they'd be all right. And then Awani is, like you said, a bit of an unknown quantity. He's not had an amazing pre-season, so if he starts, you might look at him. But I don't think they'll choke under pressure or anything like that. I think they've got so much momentum from last season and so much of a feel-good spirit. If anything, the big atmosphere might even help them to embrace it and play better.
To kind of upset and spoil the party.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there, Owen not having the best of pre-seasons. The other person who actually didn't return for pre-season because he was on loan and he's gone to Spurs, hasn't he? Was Jed Spence. How big of a loss is he to Forest?
It depends how well Nico Williams plays, I guess. I mean, Spence was brilliant at right back or right wing back. He's more of a right winger than anything. I think Williams might be a bit more of an all-rounded player. Spence, it sounds like I'm doing him down now. He wasn't amazing defensively. He was decent, but at this level, we'll see. I mean, he's gone to Spurs, obviously a massive club, and Conte's made some weird noises like he's not his player and he's going to take a long time to step in. So, yeah, Jed's a big loss, but Williams and Johnson play together for Wales. They're good mates. They've already got that link up. So it feels like, yes, they'd have liked to keep him, but I think Williams is probably an upgrade, might be too big a word, at least on par. So, yeah, I don't think there's any concerns there.
In terms of weaknesses for Forest, what can Newcastle exploit?
There's a lack of pace at the back if Niakate doesn't play. I think that's probably one. And I think Toffolo, I don't think Toffolo's the quickest. He was really good going forwards in the Championship, but maybe that left-hand channel is one. I think the other area of concern is midfield. The big games last season, like Bournemouth away, Jefferson Lerma and Philip Billing got the best of Yates and Garner, who neither of those are going to play, but you need O'Brien to step up and you need Colback to have a good game, assuming Colback plays, because Ryan Yates is out injured, and Orel Mangala, who I've mentioned, who I think is going to be a really good signing. He's not quite ready. He's only had a week of pre-season, and they're probably going to bring someone else, and they've been linked to a player called Remo Freuler from Atalanta, who's got a lot of good pedigree in the Champions League. So I think in midfield, they're a bit undercooked. If Joe Linton has that kind of game you mentioned as a warrior, and Bruno Guimaraes is running box to box, that's probably the area that worries me. I saw what Guimaraes did against Leicester last season, and I could see something like that happening again if Forest aren't on it. What about Newcastle weaknesses that Forest can get at?
Oh, nothing. They're just.
I've seen a fan in the comments say I'd take a point now and fourth from bottom. So not every Newcastle fan's optimistic.
It's interesting. I think what they have to do is they have to make sure they create enough chances for Callum Wilson. I think certain games during pre-season, there wasn't enough creativity. There wasn't enough getting the ball to him, putting the ball in the box for him. It's very easy to give the ball talents at Maxman and say, right, you go and do what you can do, but he can be very frustrating at times. The end product is lacking. Teams can mark him out of the game. The good thing with Newcastle bringing in the likes of Guimaraes and whoever plays on the wing, whether it be Almiron or Ryan Fraser, Jacob Murphy, giving them a new lease of life, is that now there are other threatening players in the side that can create chances, can score goals. But that being said, pre-season, I think we did see a glaring lack of creativity in goals for Newcastle. They're not creating enough, and that is probably something that Forest not necessarily can take advantage of because it's Newcastle's issue. But I think Forest will be hoping that kind of lack of creativity maybe just continues on Saturday, and Callum Wilson maybe cuts a frustrated figure, and St. Maximin makes the wrong choice here or there. The flip side of that is, if St. Maximin's on his day, the ball comes to Callum Wilson in the box, it's more than likely going to end up in the back of the net, because on their day, when everything clicks, they're two fantastic players. But I would say just making sure the ball is getting to Callum Wilson in the right areas, that not happening is probably Newcastle's biggest weakness.
Yeah. I mean, I think you need a Maddison, not a St. Maximin, from what I've seen in Newcastle. St. Maximin might drive me mad, but you need a player like James Maddison. I know you want to get him, who to me is going to give the ammunition to a player like Wilson. But I know St. Maximin, I guess your fans love him. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, look, he gets players off he gets fans off their seats, and there's no greater sight than St. Maximin running in a defender with the ball in his feet, because defenders are absolutely terrified of him. They don't know how to stop him, because he twists, he turns. Sometimes I'm not even sure he knows what he's going to do with the ball, and if he doesn't know what he's going to do, then there's no hope for defenders. It's just the end product. Sometimes he tries to take on an extra man. Sometimes he goes to shoot when he should pass it or cross it. But, a man of his quality, sometimes you've just got to accept that every now and then he's going to make the wrong decision, but every now and then he's going to do something really special. Against Bilbao, he scored an excellent goal, ran half the length of the pitch and put it in the back of the net. If we can see that more often, if he can do that against Forest on Saturday, then whoever is responsible for trying to mark him is going to have a very, very tough game, because, like I say, when he wakes up on the right side of the bed, he's one of these players who are just unstoppable, and he just absolutely terrifies the defence.
Nico Williams, I guess. Will he play left side, will he?
He'll play left side, but he switched over halfway during the game against Bilbao, and I guess that's the kind of beauty of it. He can play on either flank, but from Newcastle's point of view, just have to hope that that end product is there. Forest wise, what's their biggest strength, would you say?
Pace on the counter. I think every signing that they've made is geared up towards transitioning the ball quickly from midfield through O'Brien and Mangala into Lingard and Johnson and Awoniyi. Newcastle fans will see him. He's massive, but he's not. I don't think, from what I've seen, he's a back to goal player. I think he's running the channels player and creating space for others, and obviously finishing himself. So if Newcastle's defensive midfielder, whoever that is, doesn't have a good game, and Jesse Lingard, who hasn't had much of a pre-season, I wish this game was 2 weeks later. If Jesse Lingard exploits space, Brennan Johnson's only going to need one chance, perhaps, potentially. He's got a really good conversion rate. So, yeah, getting the ball at the pitch quickly with players who are really good on the ball, I think, is key. At Forest, if they soak up the pressure and don't concede early, I think that's their way into the game and hurting Newcastle, certainly.
It's interesting because Newcastle themselves are very good on their counter. They like to kind of absorb it and then hit teams. And when you have got the pace of Guimaraes, Linton, St. Maximin, Callum Wilson, it's a joy to watch. And we saw during pre-season, they were doing that goal that St. Maximin scored against Bilbao came from a counter, and they are very quick and very sharp. So it's going to be a fascinating battle in that case to see how these two counter-attacking teams, do they cancel each other out, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Forest are quite tactically versatile. They had games last year where they dominated the ball, but similarly, I think they had 30% possession at home against Swansea and won 4-5-1. Surridge scored a hat-trick. So I hope Cooper's got some tactical tweaks up his sleeve that might surprise Howe. But Howe's a great manager as well. I think these are two of the best. Newcastle fans won't know much about Cooper, but I think these are two of the best young managers in the Premier League.
I think when you look at last season, if you're looking at what managers have achieved, it would be between Cooper and Howe for, achieving the impossible in many ways. Forest were in such a bad state when he took over. Eddie Howe came in and Newcastle were in the relegation zone. No club had survived the drop after having not won any of their first 16 games. And, then Newcastle finished 11th and were, I think, third in the form table, So it's amazing. I think it's brilliant for the Premier League to see these two young managers coming in, and the hope on both sides, really. And again, it's a similar thing, isn't it? That what we saw last season can continue for both managers, because what they did was unbelievable. And it's going to be interesting to see whether it was whether momentum carried them through, or fingers crossed for both sides, there's an underlying foundation there that they've started laying, and they can build on to have a successful season.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I don't know where you're predicting Newcastle to finish, but I would think 7th is pretty realistic. Maybe 6th. I don't know. Is that one step up the ladder of where getting ahead of where they maybe should be by a year? Do you think?
You see, listeners of the Everything's Back on my podcast know I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic, but I've said quite a few times that if Newcastle end up finishing around about where they did last season, 11th, 12th, for me, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. There's loads of talk about Newcastle breaking into the top 8, potentially even for the top 6. But I think Newcastle have just got to be realistic about what's out there. Last season was so good, but we've got to be very careful not to think that's how it's going to be week in, week out. They had pitter patch of form. They had the momentum from the takeover, the momentum of Eddie Howe coming in, the momentum of signing some good players in January. But that momentum is not always going to be there. That good spirit, that good feeling around, it's going to have a dip. There's going to be a lull. It's what happens. Man City had it, Liverpool had it at times last season. So I think Newcastle have got to be very careful. I think you just got to shut out the noise as well from the media nationally about what to expect this season. I haven't seen any Newcastle fans aiming for a top 4, let alone, or even a top 6 place this season, because I think they're realistic. Top 10, 10th, 9th, 8th, good cup run. I think most fans would consider that progress, and I certainly would. I think the cups are probably the one to really look at. Hopefully Newcastle at Wembley and lifting the FA Cup. I think that's something that Newcastle fans would snap your hand off if you offered them now. What about Forest? What is the aim? A lot of pundits saying that they're going to be the surprise package this season.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I've said, we did our predictions on our podcast on Monday, and I said 15th, and I've said 15th all season. I think there's a real split in the league. Forest fans listening will know I'm repeating myself a bit here, but there's the 3 promoted clubs, and I think Forest are the best of them. And then Everton, I think, are a mess, or could be. Leeds might be. Brentford, without Ericsson, I'd be worried about them. They don't have any creativity. And Southampton. And then you kind of go up, and there's clubs like Newcastle, there's clubs like Villa. I mean, Villa have got loads, they've got Coutinho, John McGinn, good players like that, and they kind of limped to 14th last season. So it's a bit of a mad league, really. There's that clutch of clubs in the middle, aren't there? Like Leicester are a bit of an unknown quantity this season now because of that signing. Wolves seem to be maybe in decline, and West Ham is the last year of Declan Rice. So I think Forest are in that bottom third and could finish top of it, and Newcastle in that second third and could finish top of it as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens in those 2 brackets, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Just want to ask you, just finally, Matt, are Forest fans looking at this game on Saturday and thinking this is one we can win, one we should win, or are they looking at it and thinking, well, this is Newcastle and everything that's gone on, maybe a point would be a good result?
Yeah, it's a take a point game, I think, really. Take a point and get something on the board. Newcastle, I think Forest fans think it could be one of those games where you go there and win 1-0 and maybe it's a bit back to the wall. I don't think they'd be amazed if Forest won, but I think they'd definitely take a point and wouldn't be surprised if they lost. I think they're realistic because our first 6 games are Newcastle, Everton, West Ham, Man City, Spurs and Bournemouth. And I think the feeling, maybe I'm speaking out of terms, if they get 6 points from 6 games, that's not a bad start. And, 3 of those points might be Everton, 3 of those points might be Bournemouth, and a point against, a point for Forest is a decent result and a good start Well, how would I'll ask you one last question. Say Forest win or draw, how's that going to go down?
We spoke about this yesterday on the Newcastle kind of preview with John Gibson, and John was very much, they have to win. They have to win. You have to start as you mean to go on. And I said, well, yeah, you'd like to win, but for me, if Newcastle lose against Forest, it's not the end of the world. You have to look at the bigger picture. Things can play against you. Callum Wilson, I hope this doesn't happen, could get injured in the first 5 minutes and have to go off. Someone could get sent up. There's all these elements that play in. Forest could just turn up and have the absolute best game of their lives of this season and surprise Newcastle. For me, you've got to treat it in isolation, and I think Newcastle fans are down to earth and realistic enough to do that. If Newcastle do end up losing, long as they've put their all into it and everyone has put their heart on their sleeve, with a performance, then there won't be too much grumbling. And look, everyone, I think, wants to win. Of course they want to win, but it's about looking at the bigger picture. One defeat at the start of the season isn't the end of the world. I remember that championship season when Newcastle didn't have the best of starts. They lost to Fulham. They had an interesting game against Forest when 2 players got sent off, wasn't it? And there was that penalty debacle. They didn't have the best of starts, but they ended up going up anyway, and it's one game. Of course, you want to start as you mean to go on. You want to win with the atmosphere and everything. I think a lot of people are expecting Newcastle to win, but if they lose, and you just get on to the next game and you just make sure it doesn't drag you down for what's to come, which is Brighton and then Manchester City. But yeah, it's one game in my opinion. But I think they'll put in a good performance, and I think they will win. I think Forest will give a good account of themselves. But I can see Callum Wilson nabbing a couple tomorrow and starting his tally off in the first game of the season.
And starting your tally off in the FPL team very nicely, because you'll be way up if that happens.
Fingers crossed. We'll finish them on predictions then. I've said they're 3-1. How are you seeing this one going?
I don't think there's that many goals in it. I would say either 1-0 to Newcastle or 1-1. I've probably got to show some Forest loyalty and say 1-1, Brennan Johnson to get an equaliser.
There we have it. Certainly going to be an intriguing one to watch. You can catch the coverage live on Chronicle Live through our live blog. Head over there to keep up to date with all the latest Newcastle United news. Thank you guys for tuning in live. Please remember to like and follow the podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And it's been a pleasure, Matt. Thank you for popping on. I've enjoyed catching up with you and speaking to your Forest fans. Apologies for the issues with the sound as well. It's the curse of live broadcasting. But we're wishing everyone who's watching well. Enjoy your weekend. And, well, I will say from a Newcastle point of view, hopefully 3 points for the Magpies.